Hands up in the sky if you feel me, yeah.
Looking back at your time, were you aware of the class of '92? At that stage, were you aware of how good they were? Was there talk amongst the first teamers saying, hey, there's a batch of kids, literally kids, who are on the cusp of something here?
Yeah, without doubt. David Beckham has been in and around the dressing room. Whenever we played in London, David Beckham and his dad were in the dressing room before a game, saying hello to the lads, probably when he was about 12 or 13. Whenever he was on school holiday and up for training, he was in the dressing room before the game with his dad, meeting everyone. Nicky Butt, we always knew about. I think the Nevilles we knew about. Paul Scholes we sort of knew about. But there were a few. There was also sort of Ben Thornley. There was also Robbie Savage.
Was he good back then, Robbie Savage?
Well, he was a centre forward. And he was sort of a runner into channels, if you like. He wasn't like a goal-scoring centre forward. He was a hold it up or run into channels. Always hard-working. Got stuck in, and then I think after he left United, he went to Crewe, and I think that's when he turned into a midfielder. But yeah, Robbie was always he was always lively, shall we say, even around the apprentices' dressing room.
Did you think that Scholes would become the player that he did? Because he had asthma and he was quite small, right?
Yeah, I don't think there was any question about Paul Scholes' ability. I think he's always been able to read the game, pass the ball, and score goals. Or always struck the ball well. I think it was always about, like you say, his fitness with his asthma and his pace, because he wasn't the quickest to get round the pitch. But his footballing brain sort of overcome that, and he just knew how to get around the place and never gave the ball away. So I think he was always going to be a top player. How
was his tackling though in training?
As bad as what you see on the telly.
So it wasn't tactical fouls he's doing on the telly, right? Like
but sometimes I think he does it on purpose. He does it on purpose, just to be able to kick people. That's and just say, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at it.
I can't tell, like, is he really that bad at tackling, or is he...
He just likes to leave a mark now and again.
Like, sometimes you just have to do that, I guess.
Of course you do.
Another name we haven't mentioned in the same position as you is Ryan Giggs as well. Like, he was the first to break through. How special was he at that?
Yeah, I mean, Giggsy, again, we knew about Giggsy from a very young age. Giggsy was in and around the first team. We would train with the first team, probably 16. I think he was in the first team at 17. So, yeah, everyone knew about Giggsy. And Giggsy was a couple of years, I'm a couple of years older than Giggsy. And then Giggsy, I think, is a couple of years older than the class of '92.
Yep.
So he came through just before those. So, yeah, it was...
But he was someone they could look up to. I can imagine.
And Giggsy would, sort of pre-season, when we would have to spend all day at the training ground, we'd do a morning, afternoon session, so we'd have dinner, and then obviously you've got 20 apprentices, 20 reserve team lads, 20-odd first-teamers, all sat round for an hour and a half after lunch waiting for the afternoon session. You got 60-odd lads, all bored. So Giggsy, myself, a few of the other lads would all go into the reserve team dressing room, and Giggsy would have them playing games and doing forfeits, and so Giggsy was a bit of a ringleader in causing trouble in the apprentices' dressing room.
Ringleader. Have you ever come across a footballer with as hairy a chest as Giggs? Because I think back to Arsenal, and I was like, good Lord, wow, that's
yeah, he was a hairy man, yeah.
Was he the number one for that of all your teammates?
Was he number one? Yeah, I would probably say so. Yeah, I would probably say so, especially because as dark as his hair was as well.
It really stood out.
So it's a little bit of a Teen Wolf type thing going on.
Teen Wolf, that was Gary Stevens' nickname at Tottenham from Gaza, which is ironic as well. I never thought I would have this conversation about Ryan Giggs' chest hair compared to other footballers, but that's why I love talking. With Scholes, was he always quiet, though?
Yeah, he's always been quiet. Scholes is like a silent assassin. So on a night out, he's the one throwing peanuts at people's heads.
Okay. But no one knows who it is.
From back there, and everyone's looking around, and he's like pointing at other people and blaming other people. So yeah, it's the quiet ones you got to watch.
But because now he's not so quiet. Now he's on TV and giving interviews and not afraid to speak his mind. But in fairness, when you're as good as Paul Scholes was and is, you probably have a right to say what you want about other players.
Yeah, funnily enough, it was I remember a conversation we had. We went to play futsal in China. And I remember having a conversation after way too many beers in some Irish bar in Shanghai or somewhere we were. or Guangzhou, I can't remember. And I said to Scholes, you've got to get yourself on TV. I said, you've been one of the best players in the world. You know, you talk about the game really well. He's like, oh, no, I'll shit myself and this, that and the other. And I was like, but it's like talking to your mates in the pub. I said, and the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. So just do one thing. I said, don't start nailing people because you've been one of the best. It's hard for them to know how to do what you did. And then he's gone on and he's quite happy to nail whoever it is that he wants to nail. But I can sense his frustration. I think coming through the team that he come through with the experienced players and the aggressive players that he did, and then going on to play with the players that he did afterwards, you can see why he's frustrated and why his standards are so high.
Do you follow him on social media?
I do, yeah.
He put up something quite recently, a picture of Giggs and Beckham, saying, you remember when wingers used to help out the fullbacks? Can't remember the exact words, but it was along those lines.
Well, we did.
Exactly. You would have been one of those players out on the wing.
Yeah, I think if you ask any fullback that played with myself, Giggsy, Kanchelskis, Beckham, you ask the fullbacks that played behind us, we probably put 2 or 3 years on their career because we helped them out so much.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, those fullbacks were great players themselves. I mean, you had Dennis Irwin, one of the all-time greats, sitting directly behind you.
Yeah, he was an incredible player.
Yeah.
But again, as a winger, that was part of your job. You got back and helped your fullback out.
Some people, when it comes to Beckham, since we're on the topic of the class of '92, feel that he was absolutely a great player, and you look at what he achieved, but at the same time, was he always that good? And do you think maybe the hype of the celebrity of Beckham overshadows the footballer, and that taints the view of him as a player for some people?
No, I think I always talk about David Beckham. If you want your kid to be a footballer, David Beckham is an unbelievable role model. I mean, the guy. If you're going to write a textbook on how to strike a football, you're going to use David Beckham as the example. In golf terms, they call it flushing it. David Beckham flushes it every time he hits it, whether it's side foot, whether it's laces. He flushes it. His technique's really good. His textbook technique. He's not someone. I mean, he was quick, but he wasn't the quickest. He didn't really have a trick. He couldn't head it that well. He didn't go past people that easily. Yet he could put the ball on a 10-pence piece. He could pick out a pass from anywhere, whether it's 10 yards, 20 yards, 40 yards, 60 yards. He could score free kicks under pressure. He's gone to a World Cup and been sent off, and people are hanging effigies off him and want to kill him. And then the next time out, he comes out against Greece or whoever it is and scores a free kick to get us to the Euros or the next World Cup. I can't remember what it was. He comes out, he runs more yardages than anybody else on the pitch. He sets the example, leads by example. And if you're any young lad aspiring to be a footballer, I don't think David Beckham is. I don't think you can pick a better role model than David Beckham.
Did he get a bit of stick when he was younger because he's a London boy?
Oh, always. He took a lot of stick. Yeah, his accent, his clothes, his haircuts.
Was he always flashy? Because I know Gary Neville, that is, has talked about he was the flash one, wasn't he? Because he's a Cockney boy.
Yeah, he's always had a little bit about him. He was never loud and leery. He was a little bit flashy in his clothes and his cars. Just a lovely kid who worked his socks off and became mega successful. And good luck to him.
I saw one of the documentaries they did, and then one of the other players was saying, "Oh, David's the pretty boy. He was always viewed as a pretty boy." But you were on the cover of quite a few magazines yourself, so you probably couldn't call him pretty boy, could you?
No, well, I didn't call anybody pretty boy. No.
They called you pretty boy.
No. I don't know about pretty boy. No, there was a bit of stick flying around, and there were a few players that weren't quite as oil painting-ish as some. But no, I never really I don't think I gave anybody any stick for the looks, though.
If anybody wants anything to look at on YouTube, there's a video, and I was telling Sharpe about this early on, bunch of schoolgirls going crazy for him in gigs. He gets up and he does the Sharpe shuffle, and I bet it was deafening in there, the screams.
It was
for that.
loud
so
and screamy.
you can say what you want, but I have a memory and I can remember what people thought about you back in the day. Let's just
leave. I suppose it was a different time, wasn't it? And I don't know. You don't really realise what's going on and the sort of people that you're reaching, like you do these days, because of social media now and the way the media is, and you can see who you're reaching and how many people you're reaching. Back then you couldn't, and I can only imagine, I don't know, an Anthony or a Marshall or a Rashford going into a school now and the sort of hype that it would create, and I suppose it was like that for us, but we didn't feel as big as they do now, I suppose.
But it's amazing, like you see the 90s, the impact that things would happen off the field for footballers, and leading up, for me, the crescendo was in '96, when everyone was behind the footballers. You had it wasn't just football; it was the music, Spice Girls, Oasis, and Liverpool had the Spice Boys. Beckham was coming out. You had been a name for a while already in the world of football. It just felt like football was becoming more than football at this stage, in the UK especially.
Yeah, I suppose it started to peak in '96 maybe. You know, the Premier League started, what, 92, 92. So I think it took a while for it to build, and it sort of built reasonably organically, I suppose. And there was sort of probably half a dozen live games in the first season, then that doubled again, and the wages went up, but not hugely, and then they went up again, and all of a sudden Sky found their feet and found out what was working. The players started to be on more money. There were bigger transfers.
Bosman changed everything.
Bosman changed a lot of things. So I think it was getting to that time where it was just starting to explode.